Luke, come sit up close. This is your mother.
What's that?
That's all we do.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. That is an understatement. Probably 265,000. Somewhere around there.
That's really small. Just
Yeah. Yep.
it's going to be widespread.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It can be widespread or it can be isolated, but still be large.
Do you want me to introduce you?
You don't have to. I think I recognize most of the faces by now. Am I clear to go?
Yes, you are, at 4 o'clock.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. For those who haven't met me, my name is Frederick Rummery. I'm with Lincoln Electric System. I'll show of hands who was already at my presentation this morning. Okay, who wasn't at it? I should have asked that. All right. So my apologies to everyone who was at it, because I'm going to cover everything now again, because I like to make things personal. As you already know, I want you to know who I am so we can have a conversation. It'll be more important for this one than I think it was for this morning's presentation, because why we asked you all to come close was for the mic runners, because I'm going to have you guys interact. I want to know where you're at. What I'm going to talk about today is removing roadblocks. The roadblocks with implementation can sometimes be great, and I use sometimes to be nice. They are great. Those roadblocks can come in many different ways. It can come with your leadership team. Sometimes they don't want to buy in. Maybe it's a department head, maybe it's a division head, or all the way down, most common that we'll see with maybe your line techs or your field forces. Change is not easy. I think Boogie yesterday had the best line that I've heard in a long time, that the only person that likes change is a baby with a wet diaper. That sums it up so well. Nobody likes it, myself included, all of us in the room included. So being strategic on how we deliver the message that there's going to be change, how we communicate that is key, and that's kind of what we'll talk about. So another show of hands, who was in Patrick's presentation just right before this? What we could do is Patrick did an awesome job, and he covered probably 80% of my slides, so we could just cancel this all together, get a drink cart in here, and then we could start early and just scrap this session, but I think I'll get in trouble if we do that, so I'll get started with who I am. Again, apologies. I'm going to go through some of the same script. I'll keep it a little bit shorter this time so we can get to our conversation. But I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, a small town outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. I said small town. It's not a town. It's a village, as many of you are aware. But it's that little dot on the map called Unadilla. It's a town of 180 people. My wife and I, we live north of the town. And so we make up 4 of those 180. We know everybody. They all know us. They certainly know us, not just from us living there, but if you look, you can see a cutout of Syracuse. Is actually where we grew up. That's a town of only 2,000 people. That's where we grew up from grade school to high school. So everyone knows everything about us. Not from our marriage, not from our lives now as adults. They know us from children, back when I wanted my change to be my wet diaper. So that's where we're from, a small area. We're only about 15 minutes from Lincoln, which is where we both work. And most of you are probably familiar with the capital city of Nebraska, which is Lincoln. A picture of our house, but then the real pride there is in the middle. We're both extremely proud and happy to have our 2 kids. Gavin's 4 and Olivia just turned 4 months. So we got a nice spread between the 2 of them. So I mentioned Lincoln, Nebraska. That's our downtown area picture. I think it's a beautiful picture of our capital. It's a neat area to go to. You can see for everyone, we've got the water. There's fun for all ages. But Lincoln, Nebraska, look it up. You're going to hear it's boring. Nebraska's boring. It's not. Get off the beaten path, and we'd be happy to have you down there. If you want to come for a fun time, you see the inn on the screen. That's our Nebraska Cornhuskers. Whether it's volleyball, football, basketball, it doesn't matter how terrible we are. We're going to fill the stadium, and it's going to be loud, and it'll be fun. So look me up, call me up. We'd be happy to have you down there, and we'll turn you into a Cornhusker. And then lastly, LES is the company that I work for. That's Lincoln Electric System. We're pretty creative when it comes to naming things. We work in Lincoln, so Lincoln Electric System sounds good. But we've been around for about 60 years. The biggest reason where this relationship became with ARCOS, several gaps. We wanted to fill the gap of technology or exploit technology to fill some of the gaps. But the biggest one was the creation of a second service center. We had operated for years under one service center. It didn't have a name because it was just our service center. So now we have a service center and an operations center, north and south, with some names that aren't important, I guess, from past CEOs. If you want to get something named after you, become a CEO first, and then you get that, I guess. But the reason was we got that second service center, and we had to come up with an opportunity or come up with an idea of how we could now unify our call-out system, unify all of our resources, and bring them into one place so we know where all of them are at. Because now we have 2 different districts with different division heads, district heads, but we're still going to share those resources. We're not so large that you're only isolated to your one district and that's all you're going to work at. We're small enough where we're still going to need help on a daily basis. So we wanted a tool where we could still see all of those resources. So we went out looking, and we found and signed a contract with ARCOS for call-out, mobile, siren, and crew manager in December of 18. Started implementing after that, and then rolled them out shortly after. I made that sound really easy. The implementation, that's where the roadblocks are. That's where you need to pay attention to what we're going to talk about today. And again, really, it sounds like Jackson has done an awesome job with Patrick's presentation from top down. You need to have that buy-in, that belief, from all the way from your CEO down to your line techs. It's going to make it more seamless, and your implementation is going to be great. So I don't have these broke out as we go through, but if you took notes, I wouldn't, but if you take notes, you're going to have 4 categories, and you could take everything I say and kind of filter them into these categories. So what we can pull away here is some key points is you need to identify who those end users are, identify what your gaps are, identify every step of the way what it is that you're trying to solve. And then from there, you're going to build a structure. How are you going to solve the issue that you just found? You're going to communicate that out so everybody, every step of the way, and this is probably the key of the whole presentation, and again, I keep referencing it, but Patrick talked about it. Communication is key, and that's top to bottom, even all the way down to your line techs, to your meter readers, to your damage assessors. Everyone, every step of the way should be familiar with the process, because at that point, the rollout is so easy because they are already familiar, they're already aware, and they've already bought in. And then part of that buy-in is empowerment. Make them feel that this is their product as well. So change management. It's a term that we've all known, but I think we've become very familiar with it recently. Whether we wanted change or not, the last 3 years we've been faced with a lot of change. Probably everybody in this room in some capacity worked from home, worked remotely at least. That's something that we didn't want. That's change that was forced upon us. That's change that we didn't necessarily communicate. So there was issues, there was confusion, there was nervousness. We can avoid all that because we chose to go the path of ARCOS or a call-out system. So now what we need to do is implement that change in the correct way. One of the first keys you need to do, you need to identify your system owner. That might be a champion that raises their hand. A foolish person like myself, and I raised my hand in that meeting and said, yeah, I'll take that on. But no, it's been great. But then communicate. I can't overstress that enough. Consider your current practices. We talked about that this morning, but you have a foundation, you have a structure. Don't stray from that structure. It's already built. You already have the foundation there. Just build off of that. Rework your processes, and I got that down on that bottom bullet, but empower thought, that empowerment component that we talked about. And then another key is identify your champions. Who are your change agents? Who are those that are passionate about the topic that you just brought up? And I'll hit on it a little bit more, but don't confuse passion with positivity either. You're going to have people when you're first pitching this out in the room, and they're going to be the negative Nancy. They're going to be the devil's advocate, and they're asking you why. You can't do that because of this. Well, that person has an opinion because they're passionate about the topic. And that person, it can be very critical to your success by bringing them in to find out what are the faults. You don't want people who are so positive about this, and you fill the room or fill the meeting with all those people, and it's going to be great. Let's do it. Let's roll it out. And now you rolled it out, and those people who had those opinions, they were actually correct opinions, and you left them out. So don't confuse passion with positivity. Might be some negative people. At the same time, don't find the most negative person and think, okay, I need to listen to you, because I always tell our guys, I could give you $50 and you'd be upset I didn't give you 100. So there's people you just can't please. So the first component then, change management. Keep from the very first step, before you even sign that contract, and I know most of us in the room are already past this point, but everything I say today too doesn't mean you can't start fresh. You can't re-implement in a sense. Don't think that it's, well, we've already implemented. That was a great presentation, hopefully, but we can't do that because we're already past that. You can. You can put this change management into practice at any point. Whatever you're going to do, if it's before implementation, before your next rollout of your crew manager or call out or whatever it might be, keep your whole enterprise aware of that. Patrick mentioned again, you communicate it to areas, and then you over-communicate, because there's areas you didn't even think would be impacted, and they are. They have an impact. So keep that enterprise-wide. Now, I know for you, huge companies that aren't like us, that seems a little far-fetched to go all the way to your enterprise. I understand that. But think of your biggest users, your biggest end users. Keep them updated all the time. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Consider your communication stream. Leverage technology. Leverage the tools that you have. So meetings are obvious. Emails are obvious indicators. What we did, we're a Teams shop. So what we actually did was created a Teams page, and from there we can just throw out any updates that we have on the project, so everyone is apprised at any point. The other benefit to that is, let's say I left out this department because I thought they're not going to have an impact. Well, they do. They can join that group, make it a public group, and they can just join in, and they can just keep tabs on it, see how things are going. So that's an easy option you can use. Whatever platform you're using, I'm sure whoever it is, they've got some type of page that you can create. I would highly suggest that, because it can make your communication stream much easier. So for change management then, one of the biggest things that's going to help you be successful is to create a process map. Now that process map, don't look into it because it tells you how to cook a pizza or build a pizza, but it gives you the concept. So what we're all really good at in this room is we're all really good at knowing how to do our jobs. Every one of us do it great. We do it successfully. That's why we're here. We know how to do it, but the next person might not know how to do it. And also, when we know how to do it, we're not seeing all of the faults that are within that until we write it down on a piece of paper or a napkin. You create a process map like this. So what you might have when you first put it down, and we have several gaps that we identified just by writing it down, that we've been doing it like that for the last 10, 15 years, and it's been so poor because right here in the storage phase, I can see that I went back to storage 3 times. I went from one division to the next division, back and forth, and I could have cleaned that up and just did it in one step. It's silly. When we break these down into process maps, it really identifies those issues that we had. So I highly encourage you, even if you think you know how you do business, and you do, but you don't see the faults in the way you're doing business sometimes. Or maybe that's just me, I'm too disorganized. But within that process map, then you can perform a gap analysis. You can see, okay, here's an issue, here's an issue, here's an issue. Back to that first slide, now how are we going to solve that issue? What is it that we can do to perfect that or help us? Find the gaps and find out how you're going to fix them. So all of that sounds great, but the last component that we need to keep in consideration, and this should be at the forefront at all times, is your collective bargaining guidelines, your union contract. You can rewrite that process map, and it looks perfect, solid, let's roll it out. Oh, crap, we forgot. We didn't talk to the union. And this step's not going to work. So if you guys are a union shop, highly encourage you, 1, to become familiar with the contract, and 2, bring in union representation. That's going to be a double win. The 1 is you're going to know things ahead of time, and the 2 is if you can get those people to be change agents for you, and they go out to their union meetings, you've just cleared a huge hurdle, a huge roadblock by getting them to buy in, because that's all of your field technicians now are on board because their union leadership said, this is a good thing that we're doing. So empowering thought, kind of along that same line. Bring in people from different areas. At first, consider who's going to be impacted. Your biggest impacted will, of course, be your end users, which could be the union, which could be your line techs, anybody out in the field, but also your analysts, your developers, who are going to help you roll this system out. They're going to have a huge impact. You need to make sure that they're on board. Don't assume that, yeah, their manager said you can have them for 40 hours, you can have them for X amount of time. Bring them in, let them know the project that they're going to be working on, show them the framework of it so they fully understand it. From there, then, you're going to build collaborative groups. These collaborative groups might be like-minded people, Or I would urge you too to find people who might clash a little bit within reason. Okay? You don't want people flipping tables in the meeting, obviously, but you want people to challenge each other. You want to get perspective from this group, from this demographic, and bring all those thoughts together. And then you can have brainstorming sessions once you get in there. I don't have it there. I guess I'll talk about it in a little bit. But within these brainstorming sessions, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to find out that you're going to get a lot of good value. You're going to really find out what it is that your audience needs or what your customer needs. And then by the ownership, it really just helps you tenfold at the end of it. At the end of your rollout, everybody already feels that they're an owner. They feel that it's their project, so it can't fail because it's theirs, right? Treat it like your kids. Your kids can't fail because you're not going to let them fail. Now that other kid that's in your kid's class, you watch them in sports, they're terrible. I'm not going to waste my time with them. So let them own the project like it's their own project, like it's their own kid, so they can be proud of it. Identifying the champions. By identifying these change agents, there's a few wins that we can have. One, you get people to buy into the process. And two, you've got people who have been with you every step of the way helping you sell this project. Now, since they've been with you every step of the way, again, they know the framework. They can now become your subject matter experts at different levels. So they might not get in there. They might not know how to operate Crew Manager. They might not have any reason to ever create a call out. But for their specific area, they're a subject matter expert because they were a part of the team. They own the project. So you'll see a lot of success out of that. Consider age demographics. I think that's the nice way to put it, I think, was the technology inclined. So we rolled out mobile. That's a big change for a lot of people. For the age demographics, find the 50-year-old who is really good in tech savvy, and then pair them with people who are of the same age demographic, and they're not. They still got a flip phone, and they want nothing to do with it. By doing that, we had so many people who actually went out and they got rid of their flip phone and they bought a smartphone, because they saw the opportunity like, well, that looked pretty easy. I don't have to answer the call anymore. So find those people who can be your change agents for those specific demographics, and they'll help you roll all that out. Not as big of an issue even just in the last 2 years. I'm sure you've all hired just like we have, and the median age is probably 24 now. So not as big of a deal, but there's still some out there. You know, we talked about the bag phones. I don't think there's any bag phones out there anymore, but. And then this is a big one. This is a way to get good buy-in from your field forces, is encourage in the field training. We saw a few pictures where we've seen in presentations where they're out in the field and they see the guys in their truck and they talk about how that's their office. That's their safe space, if you will. They feel comfortable there. So what we found, in not only on this project, but multiple projects, if you bring, I keep picking on the lineman, and I can do that. I was a lineman, so I want to make that clear because people might think, geez, that guy really harps on him. But I can do that. But encourage in the field training, because when you bring those linemen in, and let's say it's this time of month in Nebraska, they're wearing the hoodies. What are they going to do? They got their hands in their pockets, their hood up with their head down in the whole meeting. And that's just the nature of who they are. They're out of their element. You know, they don't feel comfortable. I can ask them a question. I can point it right to them and say, lineman, what's your thought on that? I don't know. That's what he's going to say. I don't care. Now you go out into the truck, and it's going to be a completely different story. You go out on the job site, and those guys are filled with so much pride because someone is interested in the work they're doing, for one, and while they're doing that, they're taking an interest in this next step of how we're going to conduct business, and they want their opinion. And now I'm out in my own environment doing my own thing. That one right there, I think, pays almost more dividends than any of these. Treat them in their own environment, I guess. Nothing more to be said about that. But the structure, I'll give you guys a warning here. This is the worst analogy I think I've ever come up with in my life. But I was so indebted to it by the time that I thought it was a good idea, and then I realized it was the worst analogy I've ever came up with. So I'm going to tell it to you guys, and you can roll your eyes, and it's not going to hurt my feelings. But think about, I talk about the structure, have your foundation, so your structure is the pole, okay? See the picture? Bear with me. So you've got all these different structures. You've got an 8 structure, you've got a steel 8 structure, you've got a monopole there. They're all poles. They all have the same structure, relatively the same. Now the process is what we're going to change. With this implementation, you're changing the process. What's important here, or I'm going to wrap it up, is that you can liken this to the lineman. The structure doesn't change. The process is in between. How we deliver the power, it changed a little bit, but at the end, we still deliver power, right? So ARCOS, whatever you're implementing, whatever you're rolling out, that's why you want to stick with your base structure and then build and change the processes from there. And always remind them that the structure is still there. An example that I have, real life example, was we had an individual, and Patrick, I keep picking on you, but you had a perfect one too. He said 20% of his line text took 80% of the calls. And I've never looked into ours, but I think we're pretty similar. So that 20% for us, they were the 20% because they like the money, they like the overtime, they like the thrill of the work, whatever it might be. Well, those people, this was a big impact because now I'm going down a list and saying, I'm going to make this as fair as possible for call out. So that person said, hey, we're not going to do call out. That was how I was approached about it. I said, oh, okay. And why is that? Because it's not fair. Or because of this and this and this and this. And so I broke down the structure of what we were keeping the same. If there was an outage, you received a phone call. It was from our system operator. Now you receive a phone call from ARCOS, a robot. Once you received that call, you had 3 options. You could say, yeah, I'll come in. Nope, can't come in. Or, hey, try calling some other guys. I'm a little bit busy. If they can't come in, call me back. We've got those same calls. And then from there, you hang up the phone. The structure of that, nothing changed. The process did. It's now a computer, like I said. It's somebody pushing a button. So the process, how we got there, changed, but the structure didn't. So we ended the conversation right there, and we didn't. I'm not going to say we had him buy in, but he no longer was going out and spreading a poor rhetoric, which can really sour your buy-in pretty quickly. So thanks for bearing with me on that analogy, but so the value of what we had, and then I'm going to turn it over for conversation because I want to hear. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but I ran us through too much time. I want to hear your guys' takes on where you've seen benefits or where you think you can gain some more value. But what we talked about, or what I really want to hit on, is communication. And the communication leveraged by technology, that's the value that we've gotten from it, is it streamlines our departmental requirements. So we had so many processes. Remember that process map? We had so many processes going back and forth, back and forth. Now that we can implement this technology, and broadcast that out to our group, that's where we see the value from it. And that obviously increases efficiency. And then we can decrease call-out ambiguity. So we have a centralized call-out number. So we used to have multiple different people calling you, whether it was dispatch or if we had a duty supervisor calling you off a personal phone, guys wouldn't answer. The duty soups, it was 2 a.m, they wouldn't leave a voicemail, so they just thought they got a call. Well, they couldn't call back, and they didn't leave a voicemail, and now we have one number. Save that number in there. I always tell them, I don't care if you put a dollar symbol there, or if you call it ARCOS, or whatever you want to call it. I think most of them elected to put a dollar symbol, but value then with data collection. So now we have drill down reporting capabilities. All the reports that we went through, if some of you were in those classes for call out, there's, Danny actually was talking about them, a number of reports. And then if you just go into reporting, each one of them are detailed, and they'll tell you what they mean. Great option. I tell our line techs that I can find out everything about them, aside from if they gave their wife a kiss goodbye that night. That's because I can hear them. I can hear if they say, ain't no way I'm going in, and they hang up that phone. I can hear that. So the reporting is an awesome value that we can have that comes out of ARCOS. And then you have concrete answers to any questions that they have. Hey, it didn't call the right number. Yes, it did. I see your phone number right here. And of course, a one-stop solution. So whether it's just call out you have or multiple solutions like we do, it takes everything from here and brings it right in. So you just have one stop when you want to collect data or perform a call out. So best practices, just to recap on what it is that we need to do is, 1, identify your system owner. And those of you who are with me this morning, I should have that plural, identify your system owners. 1, to help with the build out, but 2, to help in those gray sky scenarios where you have to have a revolving person who is capable and understanding, know how to run the system. And then communication, can't overstate that enough. Just to reiterate, that is from before you sign the contract or before you even think about doing another rollout, communicate it. Communicate it with the department heads, get a team put together, and then start communicating so you can get that message out early. It'll help cancel some of that poor rhetoric that gets out there. Consider your current practices. Easy way to remember that is an awesome analogy about polls. Did I tell you guys about that? But yeah, keep your current practices. Don't change it. Keep that structured. Just change the processes that go along with it. Empower thought. Make sure that every step of the way they are bought in. And if they're not bought in, explain to them, give them their why. That's what everyone's looking for. People who are scared of that change, it's because they don't know the why. Why are we doing this? So help them out with that. And then identify your champions. Take those change agents, the people who are passionate about it, and push them over to become subject matter experts for you. So now, when you do that, you didn't roll out a product. Your team did. Everyone bought into that, and your team can, at this point, can be huge. So it's very important. And then keep the structure. We already talked about that. One thing, too, with the picture, I do want to say that keep it simple. That's probably, if you don't remember anything else, it's obvious that we need to communicate. We know how to build a team. We all know how to do that. What we can do, and kind of the way I explained it today, it makes it sound kind of complex. It's not. And if it starts to become complex, take a step back. Keep it simple. I'm gonna take my own advice. I'm gonna keep it simple and leave it there. But with that, what I want to do then, I want to turn it over. We've got a couple mic runners, but let's get some good talks because I know there's a lot of horror stories. Horror stories are fun. Let's talk about those, and then we can kind of work through a group because I know we got a group who's going to implement it here soon. So hopefully there were some good takeaways there, but I know that we'll hear even more great stories. So who wants to be my first? Awesome.
Gotcha. Keep it at the table.
Art Romero, San Diego Gas Electric. So I'm now in the Skills Training Center, and so at SDGNE, we currently teach our linemen in classroom to do, and we recently had a 4-day class to do overhead inspections. So the benefit of having in-class training is we have our millennials and we have our baby boomers obviously all together. So they're learning in classroom, and then we take them into the yard so they can actually see infractions on a pole, and we try to replicate what they expect to see in the field. Well, the company's moving, of course, with technology, so now we have virtual reality. And so I masked them or put the goggles on them. The older guys freaked out. The younger guys enjoyed it. So what we're trying to get is, how can you possibly combine classroom learning with on-field experience with this virtual reality to say, we offer it in these various ways, so what would be the best approach going forward? Because I know we have an aging workforce, so eventually the baby boomers will be gone, but there's still some people that benefit being in a classroom learning that way as opposed to trying to, replicate through virtual reality.
Yep. And I was going to give a disclaimer too, and I think I should now. I'm not a psychologist by any means. On a strengths finder, I score highly on emotional intelligence, so it gives me the false confidence to think, I think I know how to read people. So I guess my advice, or what I would think there, is again, find the technology inclined, those who put them on and they didn't freak out. They didn't get worked up about it. So were you saying too that they still have the option to do either, or you're going all virtual?
We're trying to go virtual, but
okay.
I'm trying to see what the adoption rate
okay.
is like.
So they're looking they're right now kind of in a beta, they're testing it out. So what I would do is I would find those individuals who didn't freak out, and I would use them as my champions. I would say, hey, Mark, can you come up to the front of the class? I want to have you walk through this, and probably have a discussion with him earlier that I want to have you walk through this. Don't give a negative reaction because all your buddies are in the room. I need you to help me with this. So I think approaching the person early on, and then, well, first of all, identifying the people who are willing to be that person, right? And if you can have them do the work for you, that's the best case scenario, right? If these guys work with them every day, they're comfortable with them, and they saw that it worked well, they're going to help you buy in.
Hi, I'm Maria Morales, and I'm from San Diego Gas Electric. As far as the employee profiles, when they go in there and they manage their own phone numbers, are you giving them the ability to add whatever number they want? Because we've had a lot of issues with them adding just a home phone number, and then when we do need them for an emergency, they're out in the field, they're getting called at home, they forget to put a cell phone number. How have you managed that in the past or for your own company so that we can avoid items like that? I've been working with Danny on, she's got like different options for that, but now that it's been implemented for a while, they're used to having that control, and now going back and maybe enforcing to add a cell phone in there. A lot of them don't want to carry a work cell phone. They just want to have their personal, even though they might get issued a work phone. So it's just a lot of back and forth on that, and just want to see what anybody knows.
So Do they get charged or credits for accepting callouts?
Yes.
Okay. So if they're getting their home phone number and they're getting charged every single time, I would think that'd be enough incentive for them that they need to go and get that number updated. How we handle that is we actually do a flat file loader with all of ours. So we actually pull our phone numbers from our self-serve system at LES. So when they get hired, they put in their phone number, and as it changes, it's their responsibility to go in and change that. So that's what we do, and then it just automatically on that loader comes over. How I would incent them to change that, that's a tough one. I think the incentive there would be not to get charges, but that doesn't seem to be impacting them at all.
Yeah, it just depends on the individual. So, yeah, it's just, I guess we could work with labor relations to see maybe if we can make it more of a standard that they have to have a cell phone on there. And, but it's really on them to put whatever they want. They're going to get faulted later. So.
Do you have 2 options for phone numbers?
We have 3. We have alternative home.
And they still don't want to put it in there?
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Yeah. I think maybe getting a requirement, like you have to put a number once you log in and you're a first-time user, but I'm not sure how much of a pushback I'm going to get on that, but yeah.
Is anybody else seeing issues with that? Because we don't see issues. I think we're fortunate in the fact that we have a lot of individuals who want to take that call, and that's why we've been successful. We don't have a charge credit rule for that fact that we still have that 20%. You know, we know the people that are going to come in, and it's just going to take maybe 3 extra minutes to get to them. I don't know. That's a tough one.
That one made me wonder too. And Patrick, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in here. Do you have to, Maria? Do you have to let them change their? What do I mean? Do you have to give them access to manage their own phone numbers in the app? Is that a rule? Because you could turn it off and say, listen, we're going to put your phone numbers into ARCOS the way we have them from HR. And if HR has a home and a cell in case of emergency, you put them into ARCOS, but the employee in the field can't change it. Or perhaps the only thing they can change is to add a temporary number that they could be reached at for 6 hours, 4 hours, 3 days, whatever. You're still giving them some control, but they can't edit what's already in there. But it depends on what the rules are. And Patrick, before you take that, is anybody else not letting their employees like self-manage? Patrick's saying he's not gonna. You don't let them.
Nope. You said it way better than I did. So they go through our HR and they put in their phone number, and that loader comes straight over. So they don't even have the opportunity to go through the app and update their phone number.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'll stop, Patrick. Your turn.
Yeah, so the phone numbers require admin rights. And so we don't have ARCOS right now, but we do have a simpler call-out system. So speaking to this, we don't allow our linemen to have admin rights to go in and change their phone numbers, and we require them to have a cell phone number listed as one of the phone numbers to call. And for us, that kind of gets past that issue. But at the same time, we also don't have union employees, so I'm not sure what kind of constraints that brings in. It kind of keeps things wide open on our end.
Yeah, we don't want grievances because, if they don't have the current number, then they can say, here, well, we added by accident, added wrong number, and they can go against us. So,
Yep.
sorry about that.
Just in case you're going to keep going.
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good. Thank
So
you.
with the grievances, I'm going to ask a question, so Danny, we might need it back. So with the grievances, do they have to have, when they take a call out, is it from a work number or their personal number?
It could be whatever
Okay,
number they
all right. So that's not a union rule to have, that they can only call a work phone. Okay. Luke?
Hey, Luke Druza from Tampa Electric. We found that the numbers in ARCOS are much more accurate than the numbers that we have in SAP in our HR system. The reason being is you let them miss a call out one time and they don't get the money. Guess what? They're in your office. Hey, I didn't get called. I got skipped. Say, hey, when's the last time you updated your cell phone? Oh, well, I just got a new one. Say, hey, that's on you. But we do require them to provide a number. We do have a 50% rule. They have to take 50% of their call outs. When they fall below 40%, then we're bringing them in the office, and we've walked people out with 8% call out response. So, we do have a lot of call outs in Florida, but with the weather, but don't seem to manage it. On a second note, just wanted, I don't know, it's not really a question, but it's just kind of let people know. We started with ARCOS in 2017, in November 2017, with Callout. We bought 2 modules at first, Callout and Crew Manager. And we implemented Callout. We started in November 17th, and by April 15th, we were up and running company-wide on Callout. Everything was real successful with our subject matter experts from ARCOS helping us through the process. It was a great process. So we transitioned. Our next step was to go to Crew Manager, and I thought the process was the same, and I learned a lot. When you buy Crew Manager, you're pretty much writing the script yourself. It's totally different. It's not bad. It's really a good thing because you get the design. You get literally a blank white sheet of paper, and you build it the way that you want it. Every company's different, got different looks, feels, buttons and stuff like that. But when you build your Crew Manager system, you really need to go and look at other companies, 2 or 3 other companies first, and get an idea, because it's like painting a picture. You may like blue, I might like red, you might like yellow. You don't know what you don't know until you go and see it. By going and visiting other utilities that are using the product, you come away, usually after the second or third time, you know exactly how you want your crew panel to look and how to operate. So it's lean on the people that have the software up and running, and take advantage. It's well worth the time and investment and travel to go and look at other users.
I agree. And thanks, Luke. You reminded me of that from this morning's presentation too. Critical for your implementation, whether it's Callout or Crew Manager or whatever implementation you're doing, find out other utilities. Ask your ARCOS rep. They're more than happy to give you those contacts. We were just talking, John reached out here just recently, and we're working with a customer too, just because that was perfectly put. You don't know what you don't know. You can see what you have, and you're like, well, I think this will be great. And I was told this by an ARCOS person, and you don't know what you don't know, and they told us, they said, you've got a Ferrari, but you're keeping it parked in the garage. Because we've got all these tools, and we're only using a certain percentage of them. So we think it's a really great tool, but until we go see what other customers are doing, so keep yourself honest with that. So find out how you can really exploit it, because there is a lot that we can do with ARCOS. I had a thought too with your employees, like Luke and I were talking, we don't have as much of an issue, it sounds like, with Callout, because our employees, they want that call out, they want that money. So maybe a business consideration, you guys are paying your line techs too much and they're not hungry for that overtime. So go to your union and tell them you need to take some money away. And send me an email, let me know how that goes. Who's all implemented then? I think, are you guys the only ones who haven't implemented yet? Oh, of course, yeah. Well, good. You guys, be some takeaways. What would be the biggest hurdles for those of us that have implemented that we could pass on?
Well, for us, because we're here, we're Blue Sky 361 days out.
Here, thank you.
Because we're Blue Sky 360 days out of the year, we were told by other utilities, you implemented Crew Manager backwards. You should have done worst case scenario and then worked towards Blue Sky. But because we wanted our field users to embrace Crew Manager and start using it daily, we approached it that way. So when you saw the devastating fires we have here, when we had a fire a week after we implemented Crew Manager, all the districts freaked out because they were like, we weren't anticipating having an event so soon after you trained us in Crew Manager. So as we observed how they were dragging and dropping to support that district that was being affected the most, they just weren't ready for it. So the event occurred, we learned from that. Months went by, we didn't have another event for another 8 months. We had to retrain 300 plus users all over again.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Terrible pun intended. You guys had trial by fire, it sounds like. But that's a great point too, that I think, keep in mind, your implementation isn't a one-time implementation, especially right now with the Great Resignation. Everyone, we have a lot of turnover. So 8 months later, they had to train 300 employees again. That's going to be common. You need to retrain employees and make sure that they're ready for that ICS event, whatever's going to take place. This isn't, hey, we did this, we had our kickoff, project's good, it's live, good, we're done. No, not even close. You've got the maintenance, 1, for whoever's your project manager on it, but 2 is that training aspect, at least on an annual basis. So That's a great point.
Starting off with blue sky versus, whichever way you want to design your system. They both will work. We found that starting off in the blue sky scenario and making it a tool no different than a screwdriver or a hammer that everybody used every day, we were more likely to use it and be proficient at it during a storm.
Yep.
And that has proven to be true.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, start off, use the tool every day. It's there for you, 365 days a year. Hasn't let us down yet, and it's worked phenomenal.
Right. Yep. Keep it simple, right?
It's interesting. They're unrelated to crew manager, but a customer ComEd that we worked with quite a long time ago. One of their issues was this idea of what you do every day you're going to remember, but what you don't do every day, you got to drill on it or you'll forget. And they weren't even talking crew manager. They were just talking about a shift from who was responsible for call out, whether it was blue sky or storm. And their storm folks, if they were lucky and didn't have to do anything in the system for 3 months, 3 months they forgot what they were doing. They didn't even remember their login. So I think to kind of agree with Luke and Art, you start with what's going to be your everyday, whether it's call out, whether it's roster apps, whatever it is. It seems to me as an outsider, you do what you're going to do 360 days a year. Start there, because then the foundation is there. And then when, like Ann and Dean said earlier, when a storm hits, when the fires start, people won't freak out because it's the same screwdriver, it's the same hammer. Yeah, you're turning a different screw, you're hitting a different nail, but it's the same tool.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, as important as communication for your implementation, same goes for training. After you implement, re-implement. Just keep this same practice in mind of who you're going to have, who are your champions, how are we going to train this, who's familiar with it. Because, it could be as simple as, I don't remember my login. And who can change my password? That could be a tough question in the heat of the moment, right? Who is it? Who do I need to get to? Make sure those people are identified.
Yeah, good afternoon, Greg Grunges, Connexus. By the way, do you know where Ashland, Nebraska is?
I do, very well.
My mother lives there.
Really?
Right between Omaha and Lincoln, so I'm familiar.
Yeah, probably 20 miles from my house.
Yeah.
Not too far.
Quick question, your 80-20 rule, did that change at all after implementation?
Yeah, I would say yes, for sure. And to be fair, I haven't broken down the numbers. I don't know what ours were. I stole that. But for sure, we've seen the greater, because what we had was, we had an assumed 80-20. When I was a duty supervisor, when I was making those calls, I knew who was going to answer, especially when it was 2 or 3 in the morning, and that's who I'm going to call. So I've got another 20% over here that I'm assuming is in the 80%, right? But they're not. They want to take those calls. They just weren't hired at the right time, so I don't know those names. So now with ARCOS, how it just goes down the line, you can set it up however you want. Ours is set up last attempt. So it just goes from one person to one person to one person. Whoever was last attempted, if someone else answered, it's going to start right below them the next time. That's a big part of the communication. Make sure your end users on the end of that phone know how that list works, especially if you're going to publish it. And I would highly recommend for us to publish it. It's helped us a lot. To answer your question, more short-winded, yes. We've seen a better success rate because now we have those other people. We've made it more fair. They have an opportunity to eat some of that cake as well.
Volunteer, non-volunteer list?
Nope, we do not. Nope, we throw everybody, and we're kind of unique. We train all of our line techs for overhead, underground, transmission, everything. So we're fortunate in that fact as well that we don't have a list of overhead or underground.
Yeah, most of our call-outs right now are taking about 47 seconds. What we do is we publish an A and B list, a volunteer list, people that want to be called first, and then the B list, the people that don't want to be called. And it works really well. Those guys, what they'll do is they know they're going to get a lot of overtime if they sign up on the A list, and they will take that call on the first ring. And that, usually on light nights, that's really great. You lose a crew or 3 or 4 guys the next day. When you get massive storms and we go through the volunteers And our union rules require us to go through the A-list twice, which takes a matter of a couple minutes to call all the folks that are on the A-list, and then it jumps over to the non-volunteers, and it's up there by the minimum hours of overtime worked. And it works pretty good. We have not had to go to other service areas that often to fill crews, but make it easy on the guys. Those guys that want the money, no problem. Don't waste your time on all those guys that aren't going to take it,
That's really creative. That's ingenious, really. Seems too simple, almost embarrassing. That's awesome. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Anything we can help with? They'll come in the future. Save our contact information. I haven't ran into anyone yet who said, no, we can't help you with that. We're too busy. So I don't need to get mushy. I don't work for ARCOS, but it is. They talk about it like a family, so it is. Even the customers alike. So reach out as you're going through the process and you're getting stressed because you're going to get stressed. And people can help you through it.
Thanks, Frederick.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks to Bruce and Danny, too, for mic runners, and helping, and John for reining everyone up.
And it's 4:45, and the event tonight starts at 6. If you didn't know already, it's kind of poolside, so head out toward the pool. It's around behind La Cantina. And apparently it's a little difficult to find. We'll have markers or, somebody standing there directing you. Real casual music festival. You don't need to wear hats and sparkles. Okay? Say it again.